what you do in your 40s could decide if you develop Alzheimer's in your 70s. This study shows why APOE4 carriers need to act now and what works best. I'm Dr. Kevin Tran, the founder of the Phoenix community. If you carry the APOE4 gene like me, you already know the stakes, a dramatically increased risk of Alzheimer's. But what you might not know is how much you can actually do about it starting today. In today's video, I'm walking you through brand new insights from the ADPD International Conference that happened in April 2025. So if you're watching this video as it comes out, it's exceptionally fresh research. It featured some of the world's top dementia researchers, and what they revealed is game-changing for APOE4 carriers. We'll look at the exact protocol that improves cognition, what happens biologically when you follow it, and why APOE4 carriers respond better than anyone expected. Let's dive in. For most people, Alzheimer's still feel like bad luck, like a roll of the genetic dice you just have to accept. But that is such an outdated and dangerous belief. Because here's the truth. We now know that Alzheimer's can be delayed and possibly prevented through specific measurable interventions. And even small delays make a massive difference at the population level. Dr. Miia Kivipelto, the scientist behind the landmark finger study, puts this into perspective better than anyone.
If we could postpone the onset of dementia by 5 years, the amount of the cases would reduce by 50%. And that's why we normally say that prevention is the key element if we want to manage the global dementia epidemic.
Let's break that down. Postponing Alzheimer's by just 5 years cuts cases in half. Why? Because dementia risk skyrockets with age. So if you delay its onset by 5 years, many people will pass away from other causes before symptoms ever appear. So this is called the compression of morbidity, where we live longer, healthier, and then decline faster at the very end of life. That's the goal. You don't necessarily want to live much longer. You just want to have an exceptionally long quality of life, so health span. Now, here's what makes it even more powerful. The interventions shown to delay cognitive decline aren't exotic. There are things like improving blood pressure, managing cholesterol, optimizing your sleep, your diet, having lots of social engagement, and exercise. So none of it is insane. None of it comes with heavy side effects, and everything is what I like to call no regrets move. There is no reason not to do this. In the finger study, participants followed a multimodal intervention protocol, and it worked. They showed improved cognitive performance compared to controls within just 2 years. So what does it mean for us? If you carry the APOE4 gene, you're at a higher risk for earlier onset, which means that the window for prevention opens earlier, but it's also wider. You have more to gain from prevention than almost anyone. That is why at the Phoenix community, we don't wait for symptoms. We run structured experiments. We track both quantitative and qualitative information. Quantitative like blood biomarkers, cognition tests, and qualitative insights with questionnaires. So we build the protocols to slow or stop decline before it starts that are adapted to you specifically. Now let's listen to the proof that doing something now isn't just helpful, it's essential.
Still 80% of globally persons, like kind of the public, think that dementia is part of normal aging, and not many people know that there is something you can do to reduce the risk. This is actually the numbers from the most recent ADI report. And I was surprised that these numbers have not changed.
So that 80% stat should make us all pause. Think about it. 4 out of 5 people still believe there's nothing they can do, that Alzheimer's is just fate. But we know better. And the scariest part, belief shapes behavior. If you think there's nothing you can do, you won't act, you won't change your sleep, you won't change your diet, your biomarkers, you won't even get tested. So changing the narrative around Alzheimer's starts here with education and action. And that's what this video is all about. So here's the question that keeps a lot of us up at night. If I carry APOE4, does that mean I'm doomed? And let's answer that very clearly, no. Because even for those of us with genetic risk, genes are only part of the story. In fact, almost half of all dementia cases are driven by modifiable factors. That's not just optimistic. it becomes very strategic. Let's go straight to the numbers from the Lancet Commission, one of the most respected bodies in global medical research.
The most recent Lancet Commission publication pointed that at least 45% of all dementias are linked to modifiable lifestyle, vascular, metabolic, environmental risk factors throughout the whole life course.
So what does this actually mean? The Lancet Commission reviewed all the global evidence and found that at least 45% of dementia cases can be linked to things we can influence, starting not at retirement age, but often decades earlier. Let's break down those into 3 big buckets. Number 1, you have all the vascular and metabolic risks. So high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, high cholesterol. These basically damage the blood vessels in your brain over time, leading to what's called vascular cognitive impairment. It's like starving your neurons for oxygen. And by the way, this is the big reason why everything that is great for your heart is also great for your brain, because of all these blood vessels and vascularization of your brain. So the second big bucket is neurological and sensory stressors, basically hearing loss, depression, traumatic brain injury, chronic stress. All of these reduce your brain's cognitive reserve. It reduces its buffer to stay sharp even under pressure. So you want to maintain these as long as possible. The third bucket is about lifestyle and environmental exposures. So it's all about physical inactivity, smoking, air pollution, social isolation. These influence inflammation, oxidative stress, and even how your immune cells in the brain, like the microglia that we keep talking about on this channel, behave. Now, here's what most people miss. Many of these risks cluster in midlife, basically between age 40 and 65. That's when the silent damage often begins. So if you are in that window right now, this is your moment. The earlier you act, the more powerful the effect. Let's make this very personal. If you carry APOE4, you are more vulnerable to things like inflammation, cholesterol imbalance, and blood-brain barrier breakdown. But you are not powerless. In fact, you have a clearer blueprint than most. Think of APOE4 like a genetic accelerant. It makes bad conditions worse, faster. But that also means that cleaning up those conditions early has an outsized payoff. Get your blood pressure under control. Basically, you'll solve all your vascular damage. Reduce inflammation through sleep, omega-3s, and movement, while you protect your microglia. Stay socially connected. You buffer stress, depression, and even synaptic loss. Every one of these is part of the Phoenix experiment framework we run with our members, where we test interventions like magnesium for blood pressure, structured fasting for insulin control, and even wearables to track sleep and stress recovery, because you want to make sure that all the interventions that you do are actually moving the needle. The worst thing you can do is to take supplements daily without even knowing that it works or not, and you're doing that for the rest of your life. So you really want to measure what works for you and look at what works for people who are similar to you, because what works for people similar to you has a higher chance to work for you and vice versa. And this is exactly what we're building at the Phoenix community. So let's go back to the finger trial. You've got your list of risk factors. Great. But let's be honest, how do you actually do something about all of them at once? One supplement won't cut it, neither will walking 30 minutes a day and calling it a win. What we need is a full system strategy, an operating manual for brain health, and that's exactly what the finger trial delivered. It wasn't just a study, it was the first ever randomized clinical trial to show that a multi-domain lifestyle intervention can slow or reverse cognitive decline. Think of it as the first working prototype of Alzheimer's prevention.
The finger trial, that was the first randomized clinical trial developing and testing this multi-domain intervention concept with these 5 fingers: nutrition, exercise, cognitive training, social activities, and taking care of all vascular risk factors for 2 years and compared to regular health advice.
Let's unpack those 5 fingers. The trial didn't just test one thing, it tested a multi-layered protocol where participants did all of the following consistently for 2 years. They did number 1, nutrition. Think Mediterranean-style diet, low in processed food, rich in polyphenols, omega-3s, and very rich in healthy fats. Number 2 is about exercising, cardio, strength, balance, moving your body in ways that challenge both endurance and coordination. Number 3 is all about cognitive training, brain games that pushes memory, attention, and problem solving. Number 4 is about social connection, regular engagement, a lot of group activities, peer support. Those are crucial for emotional resilience. And number 5 it's all about vascular risk management. So controlling your blood pressure, cholesterol, and your blood sugar with very tight feedback loop. Each of these alone matters. But when stacked together, they create synergy, and each one enhances the benefits of the others. This was run like a clinical trial, structured protocols, regular check-ins, tracked data, not just a wellness trend. It was real evidence.
Primary outcome in the finger study was change in cognition. We used neuropsychological test battery that is sensitive for both early Alzheimer and vascular changes. And as you can see, global cognition, that was the primary outcome. There was 25% more improvement in the finger. On top of that, we had the pre-specified cognitive subdomains, executive function, 83% more improvement, processing speed, 150% more improvement, and even complex memory, 40% more improvement.
So let those numbers really land for a second. You will see 150% greater improvement in processing speed. That's your brain's ability to absorb and react to new information. 83% improvement in executive function, planning, focus, decision-making, basically how you run your life. And 40% boost in memory. And these weren't 20 years old in a nootropic trial. These were older adults already at the risk of cognitive decline. So yes, we can slow decline. But even more than that, we can sharpen the brain. This is proof that cognitive aging isn't a one-way street. So now you see that your potential upside is so much bigger when you carry APOE4 because your brain is more sensitive to damage and to healing. This study wasn't just about risk, it's about resilience. And here's something most people miss. The same interventions that protect your brain also protect your entire body. Because Alzheimer's doesn't start in isolation. It's not just neurons breaking down. It's the results of decades of systemic dysfunction, inflammation, vascular injury, metabolic stress. That's why the finger study wasn't just about cognition. It triggered the ripple effect across the entire body. And what they found was staggering.
Multi-morbidity is a big challenge for many older persons. Here we could see that the same finger intervention reduced the multi-morbidity by 60%. And those persons who received finger, they had better functional level, and very new findings, the risk for physical frailty was also reduced, and they had better health-related quality of life.
Okay, let's break that down. Multi-morbidity means having multiple chronic diseases at the same time, like diabetes, hypertension, arthritis, and heart disease all stacked together. It's the rule, not the exception for older adults. And it's one of the biggest predictors of disability and mortality. And yet, the finger protocol cut that risk by 60%. That's enormous. But it makes sense when you realize everything in the body is connected. Better diet reduces systemic inflammation and improves insulin sensitivity. Exercise improves mitochondrial function and cardiovascular output. Cognitive engagement keeps neurovascular network active, and social connection buffers chronic stress and cortisol elevation. This is what we mean when we say the brain doesn't float in a vacuum. Every system talks to every other system constantly. And then comes the second bombshell. This wasn't just about health markers, but because who cares about your cholesterol level and a number on a paper if functionally you're not great? But what shown in that study translated into real-world outcomes. So you'll see lower hospital visits, fewer emergency interventions, and yes, reduced healthcare costs. So it's not only something for preventive medicine for an individual, it's actually a global public health solution.
Those who were in the finger intervention had reduced healthcare service use and cost. There were lower use of hospital inpatient care, fewer emergency visits.
Let's put that in perspective. 8 years of follow-up. And even after the formal trial ended, those who went through the finger protocol still used less healthcare. Why? Because they weren't just managing disease, they were building resilience. That's the shift from fighting fires to fireproofing the house. It's not just about treating Alzheimer's later, it's about changing the terrain so disease has nowhere to take root. This is what we keep saying in the Phoenix community. Metabolic health is brain health. If your blood sugar is chronically high, if your LDL particles are small and oxidized, if your insulin spikes after every meal, you're creating a biochemical environment where Alzheimer's thrives. And that's what makes the finger intervention so powerful. It's a metabolic reset for your whole body with the brain as the biggest beneficiary. This is why we focus so heavily on blood markers in our phonics experiments. So fasting insulin, hsCRP for inflammation, ApoB for all the cholesterol, omega-3 index, sleep efficiency, VO2 max. And I'm very happy to say that I moved from a 37 VO2 max 7 months ago to 51 after following protocols from the Phoenix community in just 7 months. So when you optimize these, cognition doesn't just stabilize, it often improves. And better still, you feel it, more energy, sharper focus, and better mood. So don't think of Alzheimer's prevention as a brain-only protocol. It's a whole body longevity plan. And the earlier you begin, the bigger the ripple. All right, if you arrived here, you're probably thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but here's the million-dollar question you might have. Do these lifestyle change actually last? So Dr. Kivipelto and her team followed up with the finger participants years later, long after the formal intervention had ended.
We have created this type of multi-domain lifestyle index for all these 5 fingers. So the intervention group had much better lifestyle after 2 years. But not only that, it was still there after 7 years.
This is incredible. The habits they built during that 2-year period became ingrained. The intervention didn't just give them a fish, it taught them how to fish. It empowered them to take control of their own health for the long haul. And now at 11 years post-study, those who adopted the lifestyle still shows better cognitive health. So let's pause and appreciate what this really means. The researchers created a lifestyle index, a composite score tracking all 5 fingers: diet, exercise, cognitive engagement, social activity, vascular and metabolic health. Participants who went through the intervention didn't just score higher at the end of the 2-year program. They were still maintaining those behaviors 7 years later with no ongoing coaching or nudges. That's a massive win for long-term adherence. Why did this work? Because the finger protocol didn't just tell people what to do. It created a structure, accountability, and support, the key ingredients for sustainable change. They weren't just given fish, they were taught how to fish, with a supportive dog, a sturdy rod, and a group of people cheering them on. And now, 11 years out, many participants still show better cognitive health and healthcare outcomes than their peers. That's not a wellness trend, that's a transformation. And if you carry APOE4, you've probably had this thought before, right? That's the real challenge. What am I supposed to do? How do I actually stick with it? Because building a protocol is one thing. Living it day after day, year after year is another. And that's why I built the Phoenix protocol. If you want to mimic the finger study and go beyond just these 5 fingers, these 5 interventions, and look at the dose effect, look at other more advanced interventions and track everything to be sure that whatever interventions you are doing are really adapted to you and are really moving the needle and are also based on your own preferences. Because maybe for someone, stopping, eating all meat and going full vegan is very easy. Maybe for someone else it's very hard. Maybe running 30 kilometers for someone is easy, but for you it's very hard. So you want to have these interventions that are truly adapted to you based on your preferences too. And everything depends on your genetics, your environment, and your habits. So if you want to build this entire protocol that is fully adapted to you and tested, that you constantly refine in a way that is extremely easy because we're building an app powered by AI, join the Phoenix community. Please apply by following the link below. Just mention that you're coming from YouTube or from this video and I'll show you some extra love because I review the applications manually myself, and I'd love to see you inside and join us. Okay, now let's go back to the finger study. If we zoom in on the question that haunted many of us, is that if I carry APOE4, will any of this even work for me specifically? Because for years that fear lingered in the background. Because APOE4 carriers, we have higher baseline risk, earlier onset, faster progression, and often a different biological response to inflammation and lipid metabolism. So the assumption was maybe it's too late. Maybe these interventions don't hit as hard. But now we have a definitive answer and it flips the script completely.
Another example how we can use the big data is gene-environmental interactions. That's normally not easy to study in one study. And here we have had the beautiful opportunity to study APOE4 and lifestyle interventions in finger trial, mapped in France and JMIT in Japan. More than 3,000, almost 3,400 persons who had at-risk or MCI. And for the first time, we could show that the intervention benefit was indeed greater among APOE4 carriers. As you can see, the interaction term is statistically significant.
Using pooled data from the Worldwide Fingers Network, which now includes studies across Europe, Asia, and the US, researchers ran a gene-environment interaction analysis. They looked specifically at how APOE4 carriers responded to the finger protocol compared to non-carriers. And what did they find? Well, the intervention benefit was greater for APOE4 carriers. This makes me so happy. We're not just equal, we had a greater benefit. This means that your brain, your body, your biology is more responsive to these targeted changes. Why? Because the pathways affected by APOE4, like lipid metabolism, glucose utilization, and inflammation, are exactly the ones that intervention addresses. So it's like discovering that the fire you feared was strongest, but also responds best to the right extinguisher.
We know that APOE4 carriers are more prone to side effects from the new anti-amyloid treatments. Here, supporting that with these type of lifestyle interventions, I think is really important.
This couldn't be more timely. Right now, anti-amyloid drugs like Leqembi and donanemab are generating a lot of headlines, but they come with very heavy risks, especially for APOE4 carriers, who are more likely to experience serious side effects like brain swelling or hemorrhage, a condition known as ARIA. ARIA. So here's the key point. If you are APOE4, you may face greater risks from these new drugs. So you might rethink if you really want to go that way. Maybe it makes way more sense to test those structured lifestyle changes first and to see the benefits before moving on to those decisions that come with risk. That's why I always talk about these no-regret moves. When you go do these lifestyle interventions, like fixing your diet, doing more exercise and so on, there's no downside to it. You don't have side effects. In fact, you'll feel much better, you'll feel more energetic, and you'll just enjoy life overall more. But if you go on the meds route, you risk a lot of side effects, including hemorrhage in the brain, which can be fatal. So be careful on what you decide and pick the most rational decision to prioritize your interventions first. All right, we now know how the finger protocol works, but here's the question every scientist, every skeptical doctors, and let's be honest, every biohacker wants to know. What actually happens under the hood? What biological machinery is changing when you follow this kind of structured lifestyle intervention? Now, thanks to advanced biomarker testing, blood analytics, and even mouse models, we are getting real answers.
What are then the mechanisms underlying the multi-domain interventions? I believe that they may be several, given the nature of the multi-domain interventions. Erik Westman presented yesterday very nicely what are the imaging findings, how we could use that in the studies. And now I focus a bit more for the blood biomarkers.
Let's walk through it. The finger researchers are seeing changes in key biological systems that are directly tied to aging and Alzheimer's. We're talking about lipid metabolism, glucose regulation, systemic inflammation, even telomere length, which is a marker of cellular aging. In other words, this isn't just a surface level improvement. It's a deep physiological shift, reversing the very processes that fuel brain degeneration.
So far we have been seeing that things happen in the lipids, glucose metabolism, inflammation. These are some of the mediating pathways. Finger type of intervention also can counteract the shortening of the telomeres. Something is happening in BDNF and omics. So these are the biology of aging-related mechanisms.
This is the biology of aging being rewired. The intervention is acting on the same systems that APOE4 affects most deeply: lipid transport, glucose handling in neurons, chronic inflammation in microglia, oxidative stress in the hippocampus. But that's just the start. The finger team is now zooming in on brain-specific biomarkers, and what they're seeing is even more exciting.
We have been now analyzing plasma phospho-tau217 using Lumipulse. We will also get, or we have already available, the new LISA CNS disease panel with 120 different targets and proteins. So there will be a lot of data.
p-tau217 is one of the most cutting-edge blood biomarkers we have today. It reflects the buildup of tau tangles, one of the two major hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease, alongside amyloid plaques. And in the finger study, they found something powerful. The intervention influenced not just overall health markers, but also neurodegenerative disease signals in the blood. And here's the critical part. Timing matters.
And interestingly, also those persons who had higher phospho-tau to start with get a bit less effect of the intervention, further highlighting that you should try to start as early as possible.
This should set off alarm bells in a very good way. If your p-tau217 levels are already high, that means significant pathology is likely underway. And once that snowball is rolling downhill, it's very hard to stop. But if you intervene early, before those biomarkers spike, you can stop the pathology before it starts. So don't wait until you're symptomatic. Track your biomarkers, start early. We build resilience before the damage is done.
The lifestyle intervention improved the memory in the wild type and APP mice, so that was significant results. And also, we have been conducting the proteomics and protein analysis, and more than 300 hippocampal proteins are changed by lifestyle modification. And the synaptogenesis is one of the pathways.
So what happened in the mouse version of finger? Memory improved, but not just behaviorally. At the molecular level, over 300 hippocampal proteins shifted. And most importantly, the intervention boosted synaptogenesis, the creation of new synapses. That's the holy grail you want. This isn't just about preventing loss, it's about rebuilding the brain's network. More connections means more resilience, means better cognition. This is the kind of data that should be front page news, because it means that with the right protocol, you can physically reshape the aging brain. So we've now spent this entire video showing you that lifestyle interventions work, that the finger protocol isn't just theory. It's one of the most powerful Alzheimer's prevention tools we have. But we are not stopping here, because the future of brain health isn't one size fits all. It's precision prevention, tailoring interventions to your specific biology, your genetic risk, and your lab data. And the next evolution is already underway.
The first drug we combined, and the study is ongoing, is metformin. And I think it's easy to understand why. The time when we started to plan the study, metformin was really the candidate. It's easily available. There is a lot of evidence from different studies, both preclinical and clinical. And as you can see, it really affects many of the key pathologies linked to Alzheimer's disease.
Let's talk about metformin. That is a well-known diabetes drug, but it does far more than lower blood sugar. Metformin improves insulin sensitivity, reduces inflammation, and modulates mTOR signaling. That's a pathway involved in aging, repair, and cellular stress. And remember, APOE4 carriers are especially prone to glucose dysregulation in the brain, sometimes called type 3 diabetes, or cerebral insulin resistance. So using metformin as a precision add-on for people with high insulin or prediabetes, well, that's smart targeted prevention. This is what we mean by building on a solid foundation. Lifestyle is the base. Drugs are the targeted boost only if you need them, and only at the dosage that is adapted to you.
We can also use and take those who have amyloid in the brain and combine finger with anti-amyloid treatments. And why not to take even further step and have triple therapy finger, where we could have these and maybe some medical food, nutrition-based intervention.
This is where it gets exciting. Imagine a future where we combine a structured lifestyle platform, something like finger, and what we're building at the Phoenix community, targeted pharmaceuticals like metformin or anti-amyloid antibodies, and nutritional or metabolic therapies like medical foods or high-dose DHA. That's a triple therapy. It's not either or. It's not do you want lifestyle or medication. It's precision stacking, layering therapies based on what your biology needs most. And guess what? We don't have to wait for the future. We are basically already doing that in our community. So if you carry APOE4, precision is not optional. You already see that it affects you differently based on your genes, your environment, your habits, and all the interventions you do really also depends on your preferences. It doesn't make sense for you to suffer your entire life because you chose to do interventions that are hardcore for you. Pick the ones that are effortless for you and that yields the biggest impact. The way to understand this on the 2x2 matrix, and I have a blog post that I will link in the description below about this 2x2 matrix of impact and effort needed, is that you want to find the interventions that have the highest impact for you and that has the lowest cost of implementation. So the most effortless interventions. And that's exactly what we're helping you build inside the Phoenix community. I am very excited about this finger study because this shows that what we're doing is working and we're going one step beyond. We're not just giving the exact same protocol to everyone because each one of you is extremely different. We are targeting you based on your genes, environment, habits, making a profile and grouping you with different other members that share the same profile, because once you have these clusters of members, what works for some people in this cluster has a higher chance to work for the other people. So that also accelerates the testing because you want to be sure about, in terms of medication, what's the dosage that you want, what's the frequency, in terms of interventions, what works better and what works less. Because if you're doing something for the rest of your life, you really want to optimize that. It makes no sense to me if you decide to take, let's say, supplements daily for the rest of your life and you don't even know if it's changing something. That's a lot of wasted effort and it becomes very dangerous. So if you are interested in all of that, please apply to join the Phoenix community. We are growing extremely fast. We are building something exceptional, and we're doing that with a lot of help from researchers, from nonprofits that I'll announce very, very soon. If you're watching this video in June 2025, well, those partnerships are coming live very soon. So this is the best time to join us. So we've covered a lot in this video. So let's bring everything back together. If you carry APOE4, here's what this means for you. 1, huge power in prevention. Delaying Alzheimer's by just 5 years can cut cases in half. Prevention isn't optional, it's powerful. 2, the 45% solution. Almost half of all dementia cases are linked to modifiable risk factors. Your daily choices matter more than your genes. 3, the finger trial blueprint, a multi-domain lifestyle intervention. Nutrition, exercise, brain training, social engagement, and vascular care can improve cognition even in high-risk population. 4, there's this ripple effect. The same action that protects your brain also reduces chronic disease, frailty, and healthcare costs. It's a whole body resilience, and overall, you will just feel so much better and so much more energetic. 5, there's this long-term change. The benefits don't fade. Even years later, people maintain healthier habits and better cognition, proving that change can last. And there's no reason why it wouldn't, right? If you feel so much better, you look better, you have more energy, your cognition improved, there is no reason why you wouldn't stick with something that works. So that motivation comes from the result. It's not coming from blindly following the latest trend. 6, the number one finding for APOE4 carriers that I love is that we are more reactive to those changes. You would think that we are less responsive, but you're actually so much more responsive to the right intervention. So it makes double the sense for us to do that. 7, under the hood, the biology confirms it. These changes improve glucose handling, reduce inflammation, preserve telomeres, and even reverse synapses loss. And number 8, precision prevention. The future is not one size fits all. You won't find the answer in one book that gives the same answer to everyone because everyone is unique. So you need a personalized stack of lifestyle, targeted therapies, and enough data to track if it works or not. All of that tailored to your own unique biology. All right, that's it for today. I am leaving all the information in the description below. Please remember to subscribe to this video if you liked it to not miss any future video. And if you believe someone should see this video, please share it to them because it helps a lot of people to understand that Alzheimer's is not just fate. You can act on it, you can prevent it, you can reverse it. All right, this was an amazing video. I loved it and I hope to see you in the next one. See ya.